Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Prime Real Estate Network podcast. I'm your host, Rick Davis. If you don't follow me on Instagram, I invite you to do so at Prime Real Estate Rick. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in residential or commercial real estate anywhere in the great state of Texas, but especially here in the lovely city of Houston, reach out to me directly on Instagram at Prime Real Estate Rick. I want to thank everyone in the audience for tuning in this week. As you've noticed, the Texas Real Estate King, Mr. LarryWBrooks, is away on assignment. And I have a very special guest co-host sitting in with me. Those who watch the Prime Real Estate Network podcast on a regular basis are familiar with my guest co-host. He is not only one of the finest mortgage professionals here in the greater Houston area, but he's also an entrepreneur, a visionary, an inspiration, and a motivator to entrepreneurs and business people all over the globe. I want to thank him for co-hosting and sitting in with us today. He is with Certainty Home Loans. Thank you for sitting in with us, Mr. Mel Simmons.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, you hyped me up with that one right there.
I know, you my people, man, and it's funny because those who watch the podcast on a regular basis knows that one of the things Larry and I like to do is ask our guests if they would ever consider co-hosting. And we always do it when we're recording, so it's hard for you to say no. So I want to thank you so much for following through with that commitment, brother, and making some time to sit in with us, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You know, man, you've been doing some big things in and around the greater Houston area. We've had a chance to work together, not just on this podcast, but some other things with the brokerage. Just so for everyone in our audience, could you just get them up to date of what's been going on with Mr. Mel Simmons, mortgage professional?
Yes, so everything's going well. Been building a little bit of a presence here in Houston, also down in Florida, and some very, very exciting news. I have partnered with Brooks & Davis as a preferred lender, so
talking about
awesome on that.
Represent.
And I'm very, very happy that they would select me to have that honor of being the first, and I'm looking forward to crushing it with them. So it's been great, and I appreciate you guys.
No, I appreciate you for carving some time out your schedule on a Thursday. We all know in the real estate profession, Thursday is that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you try to get all your business buttoned up so that we can get away on those long 3-day weekends. So I appreciate you for carving some Thursday time out for us. So for those in the audience, Mel, the mortgage industry, home loans is a profession, and it's an art that changes on a regular basis. So could you just please bring our audience up to date of what's the latest and greatest as far as home loans and lending and everything that's going on at Certainty Home Loans?
Well, right now, as you guys know, as Ms. Laura is going to speak about, I'm sure, it's a tough market. However, that doesn't mean that clients are not still purchasing homes. People are still purchasing homes. They're still using financing. So, this tough market is a cycle. It happens, and it's still a good time to purchase real estate if you need to buy a house, So, just being out there and just educating my clients, it costs money to wait. And, a lot of them don't see it that way, but we have programs and systems that show that cost of waiting. And, things always reset, things always rebound. So, I just try to make sure that my clients know, just go ahead. If you want to purchase, if you can afford to do so, now is still a good time to buy.
I mean, because sometimes hearing your story, it takes me back to before I owned my first property. And sometimes it's not the message, it's the messenger. Right. So for those in our audience who are connecting and vibing, and since they've seen you for the second time, want to reach out, just share with our audience how someone could get in contact with you as far as talking to you about home loans or getting pre-qualified today.
You can follow me on IG at Mel, your trusted lender.
Yeah,
and you can also give me a call at 832-823-9858. Again, that's 832-823-9858. And, don't let you tell yourself that you don't qualify for a house. Make sure you talk to your loan officer like myself and, have that conversation. Because a lot of times, we set up our own roadblocks in life, without just following through with the process and seeing what's out there. So make sure that you guys follow through with the process. People are still becoming homeowners every single day.
And I want to thank you for sitting in, and it's really a godsend to have you be able to co-host this week, because having a mortgage professional on the show, especially when we're interviewing one of the foremost real estate leaders in the city of Houston, is great because the questions that I have from a entrepreneurial real estate standpoint and your experience as a lender, I think, will add so much to the conversation.
Absolutely.
And without any further ado, I would like to introduce this week's guest. Mr. Brooks and I, when we were on the Prime Real Estate Network, we always talk about the power of networking. And today's guest is just an example of how powerful networking, connections, and knowing talented people can be. So I would like to introduce, she is not only the CEO and founder of Living Houston Real Estate, but she is also an inspiration, a motivation, and one of the foremost business leaders and entrepreneurial businesswomen anywhere in the great state of Texas. I want to thank her because I know how it is for a broker on a Thursday.
Very much so.
Thank you for sitting in to the Prime Real Estate Network, Miss Laura Weisman. How you doing?
Absolutely. I am so honored, number one, to be invited. Also, same as you were saying, you're really hyping me up there. It's funny because that is not how I think of myself, but I appreciate the introduction.
No, as a business leader, and my first question always for you is that when you're building out your team, when you first started going out and looking for like-minded professionals, what are you looking for as far as talent when adding to the Living Houston Real Estate team?
Well, it is dual-sided because I'm first and foremost, I'm a broker, I'm a business owner, and then I also do produce. So I have my team.
Oh, you're still getting out there, getting your hands dirty in the game. Now, for the audience who may not be aware, how unique is that for a broker at your level to still actually handle transactions and work with clients?
Well, it's actually one of the questions a lot of times if you see when you're interviewing brokerages, if you're trying to consider what brokerage to go to, one of the questions I always advise people to ask is find out if your broker does still produce. Sometimes you'll have a brokerage where there's, the broker the owner of the brokerage, and then the broker of record. So those are two separate people. If they're one and the same, like myself, sometimes you're still producing, especially when a brokerage is young. I think the stats, I was just looking at the stats a couple weeks ago, but it's like 88% of small brokerages, the broker has to still produce to help keep the business afloat until it gets to a certain point of production with the agent's production that are in the
Makes
brokerage.
sense.
People will talk about the pros and cons of each. In my opinion, it's good for the broker to still be producing because I'm still out there. I'm still staying current on all of the contract changes, what's going on with the market. It's, in real estate, there's a lot of things that if you stop doing them even for a little while, you get rusty.
Yeah.
And if you don't do a deal for like a month and you go back in there and start trying to pull up all of the different forms, all the promulgated forms, you're like, wait, when did this change? This used to be Section 12. Now it's Section 15. So it keeps me current with that.
It's really tough. And the cool thing about having a leader like you on the podcast is that we can give our audience a glimpse into what it takes to build a successful company. So let's go back, Ms. Laura, to before you actually started leading your team, becoming a broker. What inefficiency did you see in the real estate market at the time that you felt like, when I have my own team, when I'm running my own shop, we're going to fill in this gap? What is that foundational piece of your company that you want to stand on from that point?
When you're building a real estate team, there's pretty much a template that if you're willing to do everything in that template, you're going to be successful if you show up every day and do those things. And you kind of have to operate as a well-oiled machine, and you can crank that stuff out. So that to the side, when I first started, I did get on a very high-producing team as a brand-new rookie agent, and I was working like 7 days a week. And the main thing I noticed was the lack, or shall I say, there was customer service, but the customer service gets very diluted. If you get into this business and you plan to scale it, that means you're doing volume. And as you do volume, one of the things that starts to go by the wayside is the customer service and the attention to the fact that these people are people, they're human beings, and they have lives. They're not just a number. So a lot of agents who are scaling, and I support that, I'm all about, building your business and getting those numbers. But when you're focused on the numbers, the number of houses or how much you are producing or that GCI, when you're primarily focused on that and that's your tunnel vision, you forget that you're representing human beings. And so the number one issue I noticed when I was on a couple different teams was these people this is the number one thing in their life. They're just hyper focused on it. It's all consuming when you're moving and when you're selling a property. And typically when people are moving, it's because of a life event. So they've got other stuff going on. It's going to be emotional, no matter how much they say they're not emotional, they are. Mm-hmm. And in order to really give them a well-rounded customer service experience, like a very good customer service experience, you have to also tend to the emotional side a little bit.
Yes.
I mean, how many, memes and jokes are out there that if you're a real estate agent, you're also a therapist?
Right.
I mean, that's a given.
Absolutely.
So when you just turn a blind eye to the fact that somebody's family is depending on you to represent them in one of the biggest transactions of their life, you need to respect that and take it seriously.
Absolutely.
So I noticed that was lacking with a bunch of the teams, because as soon as I got into it, I realized, all right, I don't just want to be the realtor that sells, 3 to 5 houses a year. If I'm going to put myself through this, I'm gonna work around the clock and never get to clock out, essentially. And if I'm gonna do that, I want to make it well worth it monetarily.
Right.
So in order to do that, you have to have volume.
Right.
So were you able to put some systems in place, some checks and balances? When you have new agents, what type of things do you train them on so that the customer service is a foundation of them as well? Because when you're training, that's just like teaching, and you're setting a company culture. How do you go about bringing new people into the fold, and even if that's not their main focus, illustrating for them how important that is in building their business?
Yeah, and I'm so happy you asked that. Most people that get into this, I talk to a lot of new agents, or even just people that are taking classes, and they're like, this is my plan. And when I get down and dirty with them and ask them why they're doing this, most of them, it's very common that the answer is I want to help people. Wow. So people are getting into this business because they have that underlying desire. Right. And you get into it and don't realize how hard this business is. It is a very, very difficult business to survive in. The stats right now are 4 out of 5 agents don't make it past the first year. Correct. So you have got to have some type of support. And with that being said, you don't realize when you first start, not many brokerages actually even take a rookie agent.
That's true too.
That's true.
So most of them, especially the bigger, very well-known international brokerages or nationwide brokerages, they need you to meet a certain level of production, have a certain amount of experience before they'll even talk to you. So, when I decided to start the brokerage, one of the reasons was because there were so many things I was personally looking for as an agent, as a new agent that was super driven and wanted to be successful and passionate about the industry. But in order for me to succeed, there were certain things that I needed, and I could not find them. Right. And whether you're a new or rookie agent, or you're coming back from kind of a hiatus, you haven't done it in a while, or you're someone that just hasn't done that much business and you want to take it to the next level where you're truly doing it full time and making a regular income off of it, in order to do that, you have to scale to some extent.
Right.
So, if you want to do more than $3 to $5 million a year, I think that you've got to have some type of admin support at the very minimum. Wow. So you can outsource a transaction coordinator, but say you just want to get an assistant, how are you managing that assistant? Now you become, it's a lot.
It's a lot. And the thing is that everything that you're speaking towards, every broker, every business builder can empathize, sympathize, and can relate to the story that you're illustrating for us. But my question for you is this, is that what is Living Houston Real Estate, what are you guys focused on in 2022? What is it that you guys are doing to help inform, educate the public? What aspect of the real estate process are you and your teams building on this year?
For me, right now, honestly, I'm more focused on, I'm new, so we're building our roster with agents.
Recruiting!
And yes, and I hate to say recruiting, that term kind of has like a negative connotation to it. But as I always say, I like to attract agents, because I usually feel that the agents that are attracted to us and to me as a leader and broker, they have a very specific culture that they are drawn to.
Right.
And very similar to what you were saying earlier, in any business, but especially in real estate, what am I doing to make myself different and what value am I adding? And I've always had a passion for teaching. So I teach a lot of workshops, also building a course right now, teach for HAR, classes for them. And my goal is education, because whether you're new or you're a veteran, I don't care who you are, how long you've been doing this, you can always learn. And so professional development, in my opinion, if you are focused on growth and educating yourself and becoming a better professional, it's almost inevitable that you'll reach your goals.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I have like a similar mission as far as the education that I was sharing earlier. Could you speak to like how powerful that's been for your business to not only help new realtors come on board and also help your clients like learn about the home buying process? Like you said, you do home buying seminars and stuff like that. How much of a powerful tool is that for brokers that want to run a successful business?
Well, in a sense, what it is education. Education is the tool, regardless of who you're educating on what. So if education is the tool, it's like you cannot go wrong. You can't fail. With my rookie agents, I really truly want to see them succeed. Right. And I know how hard it is to succeed in this business. So I'm pretty much giving them everything they could possibly need other than just their work ethic and for them to show up. There's a lot of like proprietary forms, stuff we've built within the brokerage, For instance, this started because I was a lone agent and I had no help, no assistant. I had like 7 or 10 listings at once. I had all these buyers going on, some rental clients. I didn't even realize that I was killing it until a couple of years later. Somebody was like, "You're doing really good." I was like, "Really?" I was drowning to the point, I still remember I had to pull over on Highway 90 out in Sugar Land, and I had a straight up nervous breakdown. And like, I'm a strong girl. Like, I've been through a lot and have 4 kids, like all this stuff. I'm like, I can manage anything. And I got to where I was breaking and I had to step back. Luckily, my husband helped me tremendously. He's an entrepreneur. And he was like, I still remember standing in the kitchen with him. He was like, "Babe, you got to hire some help."
Yeah.
And I was so scared about having to pay them. And he was like, "What are you talking about? Look what you're doing. You're going to be able to pay them." And brought him on. And when this assistant came on, who now she's my office manager, could not function without her. This was years ago. And she came in and I had scribbled down everything I was possibly doing for a buyer client or a seller client on a piece of paper. And it went from 1 page and it started growing. It became like 10 pages long.
Right.
Of every little teeny tiny thing you could imagine that I was doing, but every little thing was important.
Absolutely.
But how do you keep all that straight in your head?
And your story is so empowering. And I want to ask you about this when we come back from our break, because one of the things that Larry and I have seen as a common thread with so many business people like yourself is that when people meet you, let's say yesterday, they may not necessarily appreciate the evolutionary process that your experiences have provided you with. When we come back from our break, if you wouldn't mind sharing with our audience a little bit about your life before real estate.
Oh, I have tons.
And what you did before you decided to take this plunge into entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank everyone for tuning into the Prime Real Estate Network podcast. Me and Mr. Simmons are going to take a short break to hear from our sponsors, but we'll be right back.
I'm serial entrepreneur Larry W. Brooks, and I'd like to personally invite you to take a closer look at the Pure Hustle clothing brand, along with several books that I've authored to take entrepreneurs, small business owners to the next level of their business. So please take a look at shoplwb.com. How do you survive?
3 years ago, I set out on a mission to create the blueprint for how we could go into our own neighborhoods, buy blocks, renovate them, and combat the negative effects of gentrification. Today, that vision is reality. Our project is located in the heart of the historic Lyons Avenue Business District in 5th Ward of Houston. Lyons Avenue was once a thriving black business district with businesses and commerce. However, after desegregation, that all changed. Now, we are recreating that legacy. These buildings are 100 years old. We just gave them a new life. This house was built in 1925 and was vacant for years. It's now a podcast studio and is rented out as an event space for everything from engagement parties to TV commercials, music videos, City Council even had meetings here. We've had birthday parties. We've had baby showers. And the $5,000 to $10,000 a month generated in this building.
This is Prime Real Estate Rick, and I'm here to present to you this week's Prime Real Estate Network Home Buyer Insider. This beautiful 4-bedroom, 2 and 1/2 bath home is located in the highly sought after Hanover Forest community in North Harris County. This beautiful property can be you and your family's private sanctuary from all the hustle and bustle of big city living. Reach out to the Texas Real Estate King, Mr. Larry W. Brooks, or myself, Mr. Prime Real Estate Rick Davis, to schedule you and your family's private showing today. Welcome back to the Prime Real Estate Network podcast. I'm your host, Rick Davis. You can find me on Instagram at Prime Real Estate Rick. My special guest co-host is Mr. Mel Simmons, mortgage professional with Certainty Home Loans. I want to thank him so much for sitting in with us this week, Mr. Simmons. Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Our guest this week is the CEO and founder of Living Houston Real Estate, Ms. Laura Weisman. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you publicly for being so transparent.
Of course.
About some of your business practices and some of the strategies behind how you built such a successful brand and real estate company. But I want to ask you this question for our audience, because there's members of the audience who we have mutual friends and people who done business with you, business partners and the like. And I want to give them a little bit of behind the curtain as far as Laura Wiseman's evolution as a businesswoman and entrepreneur. So what did you do before real estate, and what was the tipping point that motivated you to get off the sidelines and jump onto the highway of business ownership?
I don't know if y'all are ready for the story. So I was raised in a very religious family, and I was told my whole life, like, you go to a Christian college, you can find yourself a Christian man and raise kids. I was the oldest of 3 girls and always very much a take charge kind of person. But I just really was never told that I had any other option. It wasn't until I got out there, actually had kids. I went through a divorce with my first husband, got remarried, had another baby, so I'm 4 kids deep, and actually going through a divorce with my now husband. We went through a divorce, but ended up staying together. But during that time, I was about to be single with 4 kids again. And in the past, I had never pursued a career. I'm not blaming it on my upbringing, but I just was never told that that was even an option for me. I was just always told to be a mom. Right. And so it was really later in my life that I felt like the security that I needed, ultimately, I had to provide it for myself. And, I could probably write books on everything that led to that point, but I was definitely on my own with no money. And like I always say, I think the people that make it the best in this business are the ones that don't have a choice. You don't have anything to fall back on. You get your license and you're like, this is going to work. But yeah, when I started, I still remember, I had to borrow $1,200 from my mom to pay for my courses. I went and knocked them all out in 2 weeks. That's why when I hear people saying, oh, well, I don't know, I'm going to try to get it done in 2 months. I'm like, if you really want to do something, you can do it. So left my kids with my sister, went and knocked out my classes. And while I was in class, I started texting people I knew in the industry and said, I'll work for free. What can I do? I don't care how much I got to work. I'll work around the clock. I want to make it in this business. I'm sitting in the classes at Champions, hearing everybody and hearing how kind of lackadaisical everybody was about the whole thing. And I'm like, okay, this is no joke. Like, I started doing the numbers. I will never forget the one thing that a teacher said, if I remember anything from all of those hours in school. They said the average realtor sells 3 houses a year. And it's true. 80% of realtors sell about 3 houses a year. I start working the numbers, and I was like, wait, okay, that's not going to work for me. I need way more money than that. So I just knew that I had to take it into overdrive from day one. And the only way to do that, education. Like, how else was I going to learn? So I texted a few people. I said, I'll work for free. Tell me where to be. I'll be there every day. And I worked for free for at least a year. Learned everything, and then branched out on my own, and went from there. It was not easy. It's still not easy. It just kind of evolves, but it also, gets more gratifying. You make more money, all those kind of things. But it's definitely something that you have to fight for. People get into real estate and they think it's just going to be so easy. They see all these smoke and mirrors on social media. And it's like, no, it's just like with anything else. You're starting at entry level.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. Like, what you're describing is an extreme level of grit.
Absolutely,
and it's not easy to do these things. So, people always ask for what's the secret sauce, what's the secret sauce to how you got there where you were, how hard you work, when really, like, there isn't any, like you said, like, I had no other option. So obviously when you're going through this, you've run through a patch of fear, right? And
almost daily.
Right. So, like, for our people that do have the grit and desire to be successful in this business, whether it be as a realtor, broker, or loan officer, this entire business is tough. What can you tell them about how to pass through that fear and continue to work towards their goals when the bills get tight, when you don't think you're going to get any closings and stuff like that? Like, could you speak towards like what mentality like you had to develop when you did have those fear? Okay.
I'm just messing with you. I mean, that's part. I mean, having faith in something obviously helps. And I hear that question a lot, and the answer is typically, get a mentor. And it sounds so simple. It's not easy to find a mentor in this business.
It's not.
Somebody that is successful does not have time to mentor.
Right.
That's coming from myself, and I kind of mentor a lot right now. But what I think is very, very important when you do get in this business and you're struggling and you have those down moments, it is extremely important that you are able, it doesn't have to be a mentor, even in real estate, it doesn't have to be a real estate oriented mentor. You have got to have just one person that you can go to that is going to be honest with you. And someone that's successful, that's going to say, someone like any of us, that's going to say, listen, I know you see where I'm sitting right now, but I promise you I had those moments. I was just telling one of my agents the other day, getting my new office open and launching this business has been excruciating, very rewarding, and I wouldn't change anything, but still excruciating. And there was a moment about 8 months ago where I broke down, and I'm not a big crier at all. I cried for like 3 days straight. I could just not handle it. It was so much. And, like I said before, luckily my husband's an entrepreneur. He's one of the main people that would be that sounding board for me and say, okay, now that you're done with your pity party,
right,
everybody goes through this.
But Ms. Laura, I have to ask you this because your story is so moving that I'm sure there are members of our audience that's sitting in a chair that you sat in 5, 10, 15 years ago who feel like, I'm not put together, I don't have a real estate license, I don't have any experience. Before we sign off this week, are you open to speaking to those people who are hungry?
100%.
Who have desire?
That's what drives me.
How can they reach out to you to talk to you about possibly working with you as an affiliate, getting part of your mentorship program? How can someone take action today as far as getting in contact with you, Ms. Laura?
My assistant's going to kill me, but you are welcome to text me directly. My number's everywhere. You can pretty much Google me and see. It's my personal cell phone out there. It's why I probably have over 150 messages just from this past hour. But what I do want to say to everybody, I got my real estate license at 38 years old with no prior experience. It is never too late. I was going through a divorce with 4 kids, no money. You can do it if you want to. So it's never, ever, ever too late to start. But email me, you can follow me, you can DM me, whatever you need. But you can Google Living Houston, Google my name, and you can find a way to contact me.
I thank you so much because I know your story is so relatable to so many people. It's just that when you're going through challenges, sometimes you can feel alone.
Oh yeah, the negative self-talk is real.
Right, hearing your testimony humanizes not only yourself, but also makes people realize that they're not in this alone.
Do we have time for one last question?
Well, I'll tell you this, though, because we're going to have to sign off shortly, but I will say this, Mr. Mel Simmons, please for everyone in the audience who would like to contact you as far as loan consultation, pre-qualifying, how can they reach out to you directly?
You can reach out to me at Mel, your trusted lender, and also 832-823-9858. It is my personal cell as well.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I'd be happy to help.
Personal numbers today.
Hey, it works.
No, and I want to thank you too, Mr. Simmons, because the work that you've been doing as far as pushing your platform, building your brand, partnering with Brooks and Davis Real Estate Firm, you are the epitome of what me and Mr. Brooks are trying to build with this podcast and with this platform. Because everyone in our audience, I want them to know that when we have guests on the show, these are people that we partner with, that we work with. These aren't just people that we're finding via email or via publicists or things of that nature. So this here, what you're doing, I want to publicly thank you. And I want you to know that people in the greater Houston area, if you don't always get your kudos and pats on the back, you're providing an invaluable service.
Thank you so much.
So from that standpoint, I want to thank you again. Ms. Laura, like I promised you earlier, I'm going to put you on the spot. If there's ever an opportunity for you to sit in and co-host with me, I would love to have the option of being able to reach out to you, possibly see if we could work something
100%.
like that out.
I would love that.
I want to thank you so much for sitting in. Give a big shout out to your team. So everybody over at Living Houston, we haven't forgot about you.
That's what allows me to be here.
Matter of fact, next time, Ms. Laura, you got to bring some members of the team with you.
I definitely will.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. On behalf of myself, Mr. Mel Simmons, the Texas Real Estate King, Mr. Larry W. Brooks, I want to thank everyone in the audience for tuning into the Prime Real Estate Network podcast. If you need anything in the meantime, in between time, I'm just a text, inbox message, or DM away. Until next time, next Thursday in the noon hour, everyone out there, please be safe and be blessed.